Hey everyone, welcome to the direct path number 13. Check out the other videos in the series if you haven't yet. What we are doing in the series is we are showcasing the different faces and paths and signposts on the mountain to the one end of enlightenment. And the flatness is the non-duality, and the mountain is the duality. You already are the diamond necklace that is around your neck, yet it remains for you to recognize it. So jumping right in, non-dual, dual individuation. What does that mean? True simultaneity, the non-duality, the flatness, the fact that we are already it, the duality, the fact that there is something to seek, there's something to find, there's someone to become enlightened. And the individuation, the unique expression of the individual. As Sri Aurobindo said, diversity and oneness is the mathematics of the infinite. Being able to hold all of these layers simultaneously, the dual, the non-dual, the individual, all simultaneously, and navigate reality flawlessly as Joseph in the Coat of Many Colors, to be able to, like a Jedi, have conversations with people across all of these different interpretations, all of these different layers. So jumping right into the non-dual, that means not two, that means simply this appearance. What is appearing right now is a modulation of underlying energy, as quantum mechanics will say, and that modulation is making an appearance of matter as physicalism, as this reality. And there's an infinite amount of ways for that energy to be modulated, just like there is an infinite amount of ways for music itself to be written and composed, and then to produce a song, a universe, a one song. And symphonies don't play one song, they play many songs. That is the multiverse. That is why Sir Roger Penrose has a theory of cyclic cosmology now, the Nobel winner in physics in 2020. So even physics and science is beginning to catch up to this perennial spiritual wisdoms of things like the Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail. And so simply this appearance is just this appearance, and that's it. And there is no one to become enlightened. It's just this appearance. And it's already unconditionally free. It's whole. It's perfect. It's an exploration of infinity. Infinity is using these dreamed realities to explore, and it's unbounded exploration. So it's eternal and it never ends. That's what this is. And also with non-duality, you recognize that awareness itself is shared. So there are not two agents that are aware, but there's only one agent that is aware. That witness or observer that is aware across all 8 billion of us is God. That is awareness or consciousness that is shared amongst all 8 billion of us in just this creation design, as well as all of the other creation designs, all of the other dreams. So non-duality is piercing the veilless veil, hiking up the flat mountain, the bubbleless bubble, the pathless path, the gateless gate, and recognizing that our awareness is shared and it is eternal. And again, that is the diamond necklace already around our neck, yet it remains for us to recognize it. And again, the non-dual is also the absolute, it's the ineffable, it's the dreams. So there's nothing to be able to say. It's just this non-dual appearance. It's just this non-dual dream. And it's beautiful, and it's incredible, and it's ineffable, and it's eternal fireworks that are happening here in this creation design, as well as what's been happening before, what's happening after, just eternal fireworks. And then you go to the dual, you go to the two, and what you recognize there is that you have both ignorance and you have knowledge. So you have this mountain. You have people that are in the contracted, egoic, separate, self-finite energy. And then you have people that are literally bathing in the hot tea of infinity. And then you have that egoic sugar cube that dissolves over time, like in the parable of the prodigal son. It comes back to consciousness. It comes back to awareness, to God realization, and the contracted sugar cube dissolves into the hot tea of infinity. And so that's ignorance. Ignorance is Maya. Ignorance is the intoxication of thinking that you're going to find peace and happiness in conspicuous consumption, in fame, in materialism, in Rolexes and yachts and private jets and Chanel and Gucci and shit like that. And in the non-dual perspective, it's all just this appearance. So even the egoic, contracted, separate, finite entity that goes out into the world seeking the intoxicative pleasures of Maya is still whole and perfect and exactly what it is. But in the dualistic concession here, what you say is that that's ignorance, and knowledge is when you come back to awareness or consciousness as fundamental reality. And that then from there, it becomes an effortless action of wu wei as you artistically go outward and express yourself. So you're no longer chasing the intoxicative pleasures of Maya. Rather, you are simply honing in on the architecting of the social fabric to become more and more prosperous and abundant for everybody. And that's what's meant by the planetary mystic teachings. Mysticism means union, which is what yoga means, which is what kenosis means. Union with what? With the absolute, with God. And so that's why the perennial wisdoms teach mysticism. They teach how to become one with the ineffable, with the absolute, with God. And this is what SQ means, which is the spiritual quotient. As you have IQ, you also have EQ, emotional quotient. You also have SQ, spiritual quotient. You also have DQ, the digital quotient, which we'll talk about here in a bit. Knowledge in the dualistic concession is also God realization. Again, that is when you go all the way inward to recognize awareness of awareness itself. You become aware of being aware. You recognize that that awareness is eternal and it is shared. And it's also the densities of ascension, like you see in the Law of One in our video that we did on that as well. Within these dreams, especially when you look at things like the things like the law of conservation of energy. And what you see is you see that even within this dream itself, that the energy that's modulated within the dream itself is what appears to be this atlas unit and what appears to be this audience units. And that's why within these densities of ascension in just this dream, why it feels like, or it appears like, there is an Atlas character that's been working on its soul angle, that has been evolving from the lower densities, and that has had to experience what it's like to be a rock and to be a plant and to be an animal and now to be a human, and next to evolve to love, and next to evolve to love and wisdom, and then to evolve to love and wisdom and light. And that then at the very end of that ascension process, upon achieving an enlightened civilization, upon going through that process for millennia, centuries/millennia, as we also experience the transcension hypothesis of going inward into the metaverse, that there is the end of the dream of this density of ascension, and then the beginning of the next density of ascension. So as though the next density of ascension, it may not have this Atlas unit, it may not have those audience units, but all of the energy may be modulated differently as a different musical harmonic, as a different artistic palette. So that the idea of a soul, the idea of a soul angle, the idea of the law of conservation of energy, the idea of the individual being something that ascends over time in this density with their own unique soul angle. Like in this case, I'm very much like Joseph in the Code of Many Colors with the breadth and polymathy and synthesis and distillation like Michelangelo, that may change in the next density. This may be a completely different unit of expression of infinity, and so may yours. And so it's important to recognize that densities of ascension portion as well, because it's basically this dreamed reality design across all of the lifetimes of the soul angle developing here. And then again, at the gateway, at the highest of the octaves, what happens is right there at the last density, what you do is you drop. At the 7th, you drop everything that you've learned. You surrender everything to the infinite, and boom, you go through the 8th density, through the gateway, back into the 1st density of the next dream, and you may actually be a different soul angle, a different energetic modulation / expression / artistic combinatoric of infinity when you enter into the next density. When you enter into the next dreamed reality design at the 1st density of that dreamed reality design. And you work your way again up that octave vibratory. That in itself is really interesting because it's a synthesis of non-duality with the densities of ascension in the law of one. And it's also a synthesis on David Hawkins' levels of consciousness and Claire Graves, Don Beck, and Chris Cowan and Ken Wilber's spiral dynamics as well. Because there is an awakening, there is an enlightenment, there is an evolution, there is a ascension, and then there also is the non-dual, which is the recognition of the eternal. And so it's as though the map of the non-dual expresses and explains the eternal, the infinite, whereas the maps of the evolution of consciousness, the maps of the dualistic concession, they explain what is appearing in this dream. And it's likely the same across other dreams, where there is a process of infinite veiling itself, which is the coolest feature and mechanism that we have, and then to pierce that veil and to awaken. So for consciousness to awaken to its own nature. And that's what Walter Russell meant by the rhythmic balanced interchange, and Andy Bittner was really critical for me to understand what that means, because as you see in the Taijutsu, you have both the monism and you have the dualism with the yin-yang in one symbol. And that's very similar with when you take the two poles and then you put them into a rhythmic balanced interchange, just like in electromagnetism, just like in the solenoid, just like in that helical spiral of ascension. And it's going up towards an attractor, which is a mathematical what a complex system evolves towards mathematically, and that's what this is. It's a symphonic style ascension between two poles in rhythmic balanced interchange, whether it be night and day or male and female, and all of the little spectrum in between when you have dawn and dusk, and where you have all of the other intersexual expressions in biology. And you have indigeneity, and you have modernity, and you have capitalism, and you have socialism, and you have the West, and you have the East, and you have the individual, and you have the collective, and you have the left in the U.S. politics and the right in the U.S. politics. And what you do with all these poles, all these dualisms, is you understand they're in a rhythmic balanced interchange, and you synthesize them into one, and you drain the dirty bathwater like an algorithm. What you do is you archive all of the codes that no longer serve us, and you uplift the beautiful baby out of the dirty bathwater, and you merge them together into one. So algorithmically, we must understand how to extract what codes are working from capitalism, what codes are working from socialism, and hyper accentuate them, just like with the East and the West, just like with the individual and the collective, just like with indigeneity and modernity, just like with the left and the right politically in the US. Just like with every single one of the expression of the two poles in a harmonic flux, rhythmic balanced interchange towards the Godhead attractor in the Ouroboros. And so that's the dualism. And then you have the individuation. The individuation is the not divisible. That's what individual means, not divisible. And that's why infinity expressing itself is the non-dual, expressing itself as the dualistic rhythmic balanced interchange as ignorance that is seeking knowledge, and as the multiplicity, as the individuality, which is the final unit. There is no dividing after the individual. The individual is the final unit. Now you can go down and say, oh, but what about all of these cells and each one of the 30 trillion cells that the individual is made out of? Yes. And then each one of those cells is made up of a bunch of molecules, and each one of those molecules is made up of a bunch of atoms, and each one of those atoms is made up of different subatomic particles. And then those are made up of quarks, and those are made up of Plancks, and then you just keep going down. And so the idea is that the Plancks and the quarks and the subatomic particles and the atoms and the molecules and the cells, those all constitute the final unit, which is the individual. The individual is the final unit. There's no dividing beyond this unit or beyond your individuated unit. That is what infinity uses to express itself, are these units. And it uses the energetic modulations at the level of the subatomic particles in order to express these last individuated units. And this is what is known as the unique expression. This is the art. This is where infinity uses these units to God-actualize. So as you God realize and you recognize your infinitude, the ineffable, the absolute, you then wu-wei effortlessly go outward from the highest morality, and you weave like the tantric path, like sahaja samadhi, like the Goldilocks zone, like Buddha's middle way. What you do, like Ramana Maharshi sahaja samadhi, and you go outward and you weave your profound realizations into your daily activities. And so that is the highest God actualization. The highest individuated expression of infinity is when the individuated expression of infinity understands its own true metaphysics, its own true nature, and then it flawlessly, harmonically, effortlessly expresses itself artistically. There is no ego. There is no breaking point that happens. There is no narcissism. There's no jealousy. There's no conspicuous consumption. There's no greed. There's no self-dealing. There's none of that, because you understand your own true nature and how your own true nature is our true nature. And that's why we write the optimization of IQ, EQ, and DQ, because the more that you optimize in terms of knowing, having a high... when you have a high intelligence quotient, what you're doing is you're able to parse and identify patterns like a god around especially things like the golden ratio, 1.618. You're able to understand the pattern recognition, kind of like artificial intelligence and machine learning sees. If you can catch those algorithms fast among society, how to be an optimal entrepreneur, how to be an optimal artist, how to have the highest emotional intelligence, how to have high empathy, how to have high ability to navigate the meta communicative paralanguage, the navigation of status and clout, the gesticulation, the nonverbal cues, the non-lexical cues, all of this type of stuff. And we just made a video on Nunchi covering that as well. And then also the DQ, the digital quotient. How well do you know how to use the mass media platforms that are modern? Do you know how to make viral TikTok videos? Do you know how to create profound Instagram stories? Do you know how to make a vlog? Do you know how to conduct a thought-provoking interview? Do you know how to run a YouTube channel? Do you know how to make a thought-provoking Twitter thread? Do you know how to do things like that? Do you know how to ask the best questions possible? And so once you know how to also God actualize from the absolute highest IQ, EQ, and DQ along with the SQ of the God realization, then you're absolutely unstoppable. You know the non-dual, you know the dual, and you know the individual. And that's what direct path number 13 is about. It's the non-dual, dual individual. It's holding all of these layers simultaneously. Like Sri Aurobindo said, diversity in oneness is the mathematics of the infinite. So oneness is the non-dual, the absolute ineffable. And then you have the dualism, which is a concession, which is the ignorance that is seeking enlightenment knowledge, and the rhythmic balanced interchange between two poles. And then you have the individuation, and the individuation is the multiplicity. Again, it's illusory, but it's the exact beautiful way that infinity expresses itself creatively. And to recognize that truly, and to be able to optimize yourself on an IQ, EQ, and DQ level around the flawless, harmonic, effortless wu-wei, highest morality, sahaja samadhi, tantric path of weaving your realizations into the social fabric to maximize human potential. That is it. That is it. There's nothing more beyond being able to navigate these layers simultaneously, to hold the true simultaneity of all of these layers simultaneously. Non-duality, duality, and individual. The non-dual, dual individuation. All of them simultaneously, like a fucking Jedi. That's it. It's as simple as that. So again, the diamond necklace is already around each of our necks. That's the non-duality. And the dualistic concession is to say that I don't see the diamond necklace around my neck. I'm still seeking happiness and peace externally. And it's to turn inward, like the parable of the prodigal son, to recognize awareness, consciousness as the God realization, as the diamond necklace around the neck. And then the individuation is the source light refracting through your own unique jewel around your neck as the artistic expression of infinity out into the finite dream that this is. Non-dual, dual individuation. Adore you so much. Thank you for tuning in. It's so fascinating being able to juggle all of these concepts inside of a lattice work that is attempting to make the ineffable be represented by symbols in a cohesive way, by story in a cohesive way, by art in a cohesive way that helps people both God realize and God actualize, and to make pedagogy around this in a non-dogmatic, non-fundamental way, in a way that is beautiful and blissful and peaceful and collaborative and harmonic with our planetary ecology and one another. So if the video brought you value, like the video, subscribe if you haven't, share the video with other people that you know this would profoundly resonate with, and comment below and let me know how you feel. Would love to hear from you. And join the channel if you want to gain exclusive perks and become a member. Every single one of the dollars of revenue goes directly into the actualization of all of our biggest projects. We adore you so much. Thank you for all of your support. Infinite love. And the non-dual, dual individuation. So beautiful. True simultaneity across all layers. Joseph in the coat of many colors. Tailored like a Jedi at all times. Thank you. Namaste. I bow to the divine in you.